Okay, calling the meeting to order, Economic Development Commission for February the 3rd, 2022. And I'm going to start off with taking roll call. Bill Groves, Commissioner.
Craig Mellon, Commissioner.
Michael Whitehouse, Commissioner.
Robert Boris, Commissioner.
Where's our last commissioner?
There he is. I see him.
Okay.
I'm back on.
Just introduced, we just did roll call.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, could you just announce yourself for the roll call?
Yep, sure. Thomas Spinelli, Commissioner.
Thank you, Tom. So first out of the gate, before we get to public commissions, I would like to welcome Robert Boris as our newest commissioner. Paige and I had a nice opportunity meeting with him last week. He's got a very impressive background, and look, he has the credentials that we really look for on this, and he definitely has the energy for what EDC is trying to do going forward. So with that, welcome.
Thank you very much.
You went over, Rob, Bob, Robert, that's how he kind of left it with us, whatever it comes out.
That's perfect. As long as it stays on the nice side, you can call me anything.
Correct. We'll let others to call the names.
Yeah.
So Lauren, do we have any public communication?
We do. We have Catherine Pratt and Mary Ellen Furlong. If you'd like to speak, just raise your hand. I don't see that they're here to speak. They may, oh, one is, hold on one moment. Okay, you can go ahead and speak.
Mary Ellen, if you just introduce yourself and then you may go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jim Furlong. I'm the husband of Mary Ellen, and I'm using her pad. So that's why it's a little confusing.
I apologize. Thank you.
Oh, no apology necessary. I'm a conservationist, and I'm interested to hear about your conversation today about data centers.
Very good. Thank you very much. Yes, we have brought in a speaker tonight to join us. Larry Dunn is the commissioner, the chairman of the Conservation Commission. And it's an opportunity for us to work together as commissions because we have interests on both sides of it. And I've asked him to come on under new business to give us an overview of exactly what's entailed on this project. It's in the state that there's nothing on the table at this point in time for us, but I think it's good for us to have the knowledge. So I'll bring him on for the new business. Okay, next up, approval of minutes for January the 6th, 2022. I hope everyone's had an opportunity. I know Robert wasn't involved with that meeting, but any of the other commissioners, any changes that they see or additions they'd like to add?
So move.
Is that a move to approve the minutes?
That'll do.
So I have a motion to approve minutes. Do I have a second? Second, anyone?
Second.
Michael has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed. Thank you very much. Up with old business, and this is the mastermind group we touched on briefly. Michael has graciously started the spearheading and what we were suggesting to him, and I would also like Paige's input on it also, but to do it as a subcommittee because it is a little bit outside of what our norm is, but I think it's something we should try as a commission. I think we all agree that there's nothing we shouldn't put efforts into that might be of benefit. So Michael, where are you with the subcommittee creation? Or I know we had one person on it, and then Craig, I'll go to you.
Yep. So I will say it's easier to put together a mastermind than a subcommittee. Like in the time I could put together the subcommittee and have meetings and whatnot, I could have done the mastermind 3 times. Because the structurally it's very simple. It's a matter of promoting it, promoting it through the EDC's channels to let businesses know there's interest. So, I mean, I'm open to if there's other people who want to help with it, but it's fairly straightforward it's a matter of opening up a Zoom room and inviting business owners into it and then facilitating a mastermind.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to you, Craig, right after. I think from my standpoint, yeah, I understand that putting it together, it's more from the topic the focus on that standpoint. I wish we did have Justin. Were you able to talk to Justin at all on this, or?
I didn't have a chance to talk to Justin, no.
Okay, so I'll reach out. Craig, you had your hand up?
No, actually, I was moving a piece of paper, sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right. I thought you had some great thoughts on this. So, Paige, what's the best way do you see moving forward with this, because we need to refocus it to what topics we're going to. So thoughts?
Yeah, I understand the concept. I understand, I think, what it would be, but still there needs to be some logistical planning. So, Michael, we do definitely want to respect your time, but I think having a quick meeting just to understand what are the topics, how we're going to get the word out, how we're going to promote it. I think that's going to be helpful for us. We can do it through, a Zoom meeting real fast at a time that's convenient for you. But I think the who, what, why, where, when, those types of questions, I think we need to answer so that we can launch it. So that's the purpose of having the subcommittee conversation.
Fine. So who would be on the subcommittee?
Well, yeah, I think first we were thinking of Justin just because of his tie to the restaurant side. Hey, Robert, question to you. Are you familiar with Mastermind and such?
I'm familiar with the concept in general. I've heard it before. I think it is an effective effort to go forward. I'd love to hear more from Michael about his approach to it. I think it's of value.
Well, then could I ask you to actually serve on that subcommittee, and maybe I'll start it off also with just a quick Zoom meeting with Paige and Sam because they run the logistics for us. And then I'll see if I can also bring in Justin, just as someone that has the restaurant aspect of it because short term, we're still kind of want to be sensitive to what they're going through. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll send out an invite. I'll have Lauren send out an invite when Paige and I can decide on the time frame on it. We'll try to do that sooner than later so we can get going with this and maybe have something back for the commission next month. That make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. Thank you so much, Michael, for your efforts on it. I know you could probably whip it up, but the logistics are what we have to get around. Okay, next on our old business is our annual report. I thank Craig for his input. I know Susan gave input also. And anyone else that through Lauren, those are the ones I saw specifically. So we put together, I took all recommendations because as I said, to me, it's from the commission, it's not from me. And had Lauren send out the changes. And I just want any discussion on the changes that made or anything else we want to do on it, or Craig, you have any comments on it?
No, I think there were some grammatical changes. I think the only one of substance was that since our charter is to support the OPDS staff, we took that out of the goals and made it the preamble to the other 5. Just thinking that having that many goals, the more goals you have, the harder it is to keep track of how you're doing. And since all 5 of them really help Paige and Sam and group to do what they do, just moved it to the heading rather than having it a separate goal.
I believe we did that. I just want to make sure that when I last.
We did.
So that was done.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure because I have 3 different drafts. So I get confused sometimes when I get so many drafts. And then that makes perfect sense. As I said, I'm more interested in having something that we can go forward with. I would still like to, I'm going to, upon approval of this as our 2022 and plan to action, to present it to the town council at their convenience, because I would like to have more of a discussion with it. And of course, I would welcome all commissioners to be there to participate or to give input and whatever. But I don't think we've done that in quite some time, and I know it's not necessary, but I think this time at our junction that it might be a good idea. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve our 2022 plan of action. Annual report, whatever we want to call it.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in
Second.
favor?
aye.
Aye.
Hey,
Okay, so that has passed. Thank you very much for everyone's efforts on that. Okay, new business. As I said, I've asked Larry Dunn. He reached out to me last month before a meeting, and I did briefly touch upon it. And I know since then, the Conservation Commission also met, and they unanimously decided to work with us on this because it's one of those projects that we kind of have a lot of synergy with. So with that, Larry, I'm going to let you give everyone your overall standpoint on the data center.
Okay, get that unmuted. Yeah, hey, thanks for letting me speak. I kind of come with two hats. One is that my background is I spent almost 50 years in the information technology business. The first 25, I built stuff that went in data centers, and the next 25, I ran, managed, bought, sold, and did all kinds of things with data centers themselves. So I know a little bit about it. And with that, I offered and was accepted by John Burt to support kind of as a advisor at the right time, you know, in terms of asking questions on the business plans and support for anything that's brought forward to the town. Now, my other hat as chairman of the Conservation Commission is to understand and look at the impacts. You know, I should say liability is probably a loaded word, but cautionary notes in terms of what data centers can provide. So my discussions with Bill was, you know, our common interest is having the best decision for the town of Groton. And given my background, you know, I can assure you that I'm not against data centers. Like I said, I've lived in them for a long time. So there's really two pieces, and it could be as brief or as expansive as you want, is talking about the business of data centers, not something that, as Bill said, you know, it's kind of in the background or wheelhouse of you guys. It's kind of a little bit esoteric. And then the, you know, second piece is the, you know, what are the environmental considerations one should think about? So as it's up to you on, you know, how much you want to, you know, me to discuss on the business of it before we get to the environmental impact. So I'll kind of follow your lead. And let me.
I guess, Larry, because I have a good understanding, but I think Robert has a good understanding of data centers and what they entail. I don't know if everyone does. But just to give an overview of the size that we, you know, what are we talking about this facility they're looking to do?
All right. Well, I guess there's two aspects of it. First of all is I should start with that. What the research I've done on what's on the table, to me, is not a serious proposal for a data center. Right. So let me start with that. Right. So it's missing a lot of pieces. My original assessment and my first advice to John was that this guy's just trying to, you know, collect and control the rights to data centers in Connecticut as a result of the tax advantages that were, you know, kind of offered by the governor. And he didn't have the background experience, or there's nothing cogent about about whatever he put on there. And I can get to that, what he did put on there, but that he'd probably wind up selling it to somebody that might be more serious. So I think late last week I did hear that he is going to sell the rights to somebody, right? And that's about as much as we know. So I guess at this point, we don't have, what I would call a real proposal on the table for me to comment on. But given that, I'll just spend a minute. I'll go real quick. If anyone is, oops, let's see. Why doesn't that go down? There we go. All right, so what I heard is you guys know what data centers are, but there's a lot of different kinds of data centers. And the kind of data center that might be useful in Connecticut is limited. Okay, so let me not spend a lot of time on that. The data centers, the growth is in cloud computing, not necessarily what I would call either a co-location or a private data center, which is kind of what he threw on the table. I don't see any of the, I won't say major, I won't see any of the cloud computing companies setting up business in Connecticut. I mean, so that's kind of my first statement. So you're not going to see an Amazon or a Microsoft or a Dell or an IBM, or is that we just don't have the parameters that would make it worthwhile economically to do something here. And the location isn't the best either when I get down to that. So I kind of mentioned different generic, I mean, there's more, but the major ones are here. So, if you get down from the bottom two, I don't see a business case to have in Connecticut. Colo basically says, it's like rent a space, right? I got my stuff here and you kind of come in and do it. It's like, who would come here for that? It's certainly not the big guys. It's not going to be General Dynamics. It's not going to be Pfizer. They have their own data centers. I know because I supported General Dynamics data center, in Computer Science Corporation, and I supported a piece of Pfizer, when I worked for the same company. There is no way on earth they're going to ever allow that to go into a cloud other than some sub portion and HR and some other things aspect that they don't care about. Their core business, the major, computer data-driven stuff, that's going to be private. And they're going to own their own, quite frankly. So, who's left? When you then say, and what he said, oh, gee, we're halfway between Boston and New York. And it's kind of like, guys, that doesn't matter, because unless you're within 10 to 12 kilometers, you don't get any advantage of location. It's, I can go out to the west as well as I can go to here from Boston, and it's a hell of a lot cheaper, right? So when you get there, you go, so I scratching my head going, is this even real? And what's it going to be? Then the other thing would be that if it's the other aspect of looking at it is which type of data center, whether it's 4 nines, which is actually even tier 4 plus, or something less than that. It has different requirements and different impacts on the community, depending on the, let's call it the uptime target for that data center. No idea on what he was looking at, because there was nothing at all in any of the information that stated that, right? And it does make a heck of a bit of difference on what your target is for that. It gets real expensive when you go to tier 4 plus. I had only one customer that did that, and that was a hospital system, and downtime meant people could die, right? So we did a lot of work to make sure that was 100% up, not just 99 and 4 nines. But let's get in a little bit about where you want to put it, right? Major markets and customers. I don't see that in the Groton area. I'm trying not to be a bummer here, but I'm just trying to put reality here. I don't necessarily see it. Really not proximity, meaning real-time data backups to Boston and New York just ain't going to happen, right? It's physics say that it's impossible to do, at least technology as we know it today. Labor costs and availability. Again, is that depending on the type of data center they're running, the most cost-effective data center is lights out, which means no people, other than maybe some maintenance guys that make sure that, the power's on and that the water's on and that kind of stuff. But there's really not what I would call IT labor there. If you're in a colo, the type of a data center, yes, you are going to have people, but again, the objective of a well-run data center has the absolute minimum of people necessary to do the job. So if you look at the benefit to saying, oh, I'm going to bring jobs to Groton because of a data center, once the thing is built, it's really a minor impact, right? So that's that kind of flavor. Environmental conditions. Unfortunately, every item on that list I've experienced, plus a couple that aren't on there, meaning terrorist attacks and bandits who came in and kind of attacked the data center and stole some of the equipment. So a lot of
Excuse me,
things-
Larry, are we supposed to be able to see this list?
I'm sorry, yeah, you can't see this?
I just see data center briefing for EDC.
Really? Crap. Hold on. Let me.
There we go.
According to Zoom, that was supposed to have worked. Let me do this a little better. Thank you for mentioning that, as I kind of looked that up and said, gee, that was supposed to give me full screen. All right, so is that?
Yeah,
can you
I see the data center tier rating breakdown.
Okay, so I talked about that, and I was kind of into this. I talked about, and I was on really talking about three. I inherited some data centers that were actually built on fault lines. Not a good thing to have. In floodplains, not a good thing to have. So, that was kind of like the outsourcing business. People wanted to get rid of that stuff, and they wanted to give it to us. So been through all that. So when you go, you want something that's a really stable environment. So clearly you don't want to be anywhere where there's rising water, which says the whole south end of Groton is totally unacceptable. But we're actually not, we're a reasonably stable environment. The data center in Norwich, which is which I was a site manager on, was pretty stable. Other than people, the downtime was done because people did stuff, like a backhoe ripping up the power to the building, which actually happened. That was fun. So a lot of stuff goes on, but we're not in bad shape there. Airport highway accessibility, we're reasonably close. The Providence airports or even the local airports to fly stuff in and out, not a big thing. Cost of real estate, this is pretty expensive compared with other locations and what I would call data center hubs or data center areas of business that are around the country. And this is kind of the big thing here. The only reason that we're even having this discussion is because of economic development incentives. All right. Otherwise, I don't think anybody would be coming here for it. Now, how much that is, how real it is, the pluses and minuses, we'll see. That's the reason that we're even having this discussion. Obviously, you got to have high bandwidth fiber connectivity, et cetera, to get from A to B. And this is the second big one. Cost of utilities. Power and water are the big two main inputs into data centers. It'll I guess you want to have low cost power. Connecticut is not a low cost power state. So again, I'm kind of going, I twitch when I'm going, why? The only reason that we built a data center in Norwich, got to deal with the state. This is back probably 25 years ago and still continues, right? Which makes it, which made it a decent economic trade-off. But other than that, that would never have been built. So that's kind of the kind of the quick overview of data center, some of the problems and the business issues there. So my net was that I haven't seen a business case. I'd love to look at one to provide some input on whether it's real or just wasting our time. But I think my personal opinion, I think it's a stretch. Any questions on that part of the discussion?
Actually, Larry, I have one question because it's something that is in its infancy, but it's something that is on my radar. Is here we have in our backyard the blue tech industry coming in. It is one of those things that who knows that if something like that takes off in that area of Groton where we seem to be incubating it. Now is there a reason to have a data center maybe for those types of startups and such accessible in proximity to what this guy's proposing?
Well, having worked with a bunch of startups, et cetera, the most logical and economic approach is cloud-based computing, where you buy it by the hour or sometimes by the minute. You buy what you want, you don't buy what you want, you have no commitments. I mean, that's the perfect answer for startups. Any dedicated data center doesn't make a lot of sense. Why make that commitment as a startup company? So having, on that score, I would say though, having connectivity is important, right? So getting the fiber links and getting those in there and making sure that you can get access to the major trunks that run through Connecticut for access. That's the important part. I would not see any startup. I'm trying to conceive of a reason, to go to anything other than a cloud computing. I mean, if there's some really top secret algorithmic base they want to protect, maybe, but then I wouldn't go to a colo either. I have my own private data center. Like I said, back to the Pfizer discussion, they want high security. I supported Department of Defense data centers. That's another whole level of security, both physical and electronic, et cetera. And I don't see the government putting one here either. Any other questions?
I have a question about about the term data center. Are they going to be doing any machine learning, AI applications? Is this Amazon Web Services thinking of being placed on there? It's a very broad term. I'm not up to speed with what the vendor is, or the proposal is. Is this just a storage, or are they going to facilitate cloud services like Amazon Web Services?
Yeah, the answer is Amazon wouldn't work with them anyway, but so no, I think is from what I've been able to read, they were going to provide more of a colo. I will build it and people will place their equipment there versus them investing in the gear that would then offer some quote cloud-based services. The economy of scale for that.
So they're
billions of dollars being invested in cloud-based services. There's no way this can compete with that.
So they're proposing to put basically a shell and some rack space inside of this basically warehouse for people to place their servers inside?
Right now, that's the best I can kind of extract. There's no real business plan which would answer your question. That's part of my frustration. Exactly what's your target market? Other than, oh, there's a lot of companies that are close to us in Boston that can use this. Well, what do you mean? How are they going to use it? Right? Like you said, is it cloud-based? I don't see that happening, right? Because it can't be cost effective. So it could only be, I think, something like a colo or as you said, as a shell that people would rent space and pay for the power and water, et cetera, and have them run, which is kind of an outsourcing type of business. But the lack of information is what kind of got me tingling, because you don't spend $300-400 million building data centers without having a pretty good business plan with a 50-year outlook. So that's got me nervous, and why I said that it's not real yet, right? Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Oh. So now, where do we kind of cross foot? So I kind of went through there that says, now let's talk about where, we cross over to the environment. So, power consumption is certainly key. In the contract, they had this interesting fee structure, which is based upon the amount of power they consumed, which is different. There was some side discussion that says, oh, gee, I'll set up some solar farms to offset the power costs from the utility companies. Except when you look at his footprint, you would need 1,000 acres of Groton space with all, filled with solar panels to be able to support that design that he put on the table. We don't have 1,000 acres of land in Groton, even available or suitable. So that didn't make sense to me. Would he take down 20, 30, 40 acres and put in solar panels to do some modest power generation? The answer is, well, maybe. But again, my view would be the environmental trade-offs for that and the benefit to the town, with our commitment for, zero carbon neutrality, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Right. I'm kind of taking the conservation side as much as anything. So, the power consumption, I even though the utility company says, yeah, well, we think we could provide it for them. Again, the cost is so much cheaper in other states, and I scratch my head. Water consumption, this is something that, depending on how they build it, is you don't want to take in, you don't want to take water out of the aquifer, which we want to drink, process it and put it back in the aquifer. I mean, so the whole, and this gets into, the actual building plan. So if they do it, there is a way of doing it where you don't impact the aquifer. If they don't do that, then I would absolutely object to it from a conservation point of view that says, hey guys, you're really screwing around with our water supply. And what are you trying to do? Save a buck or two, but then it falls on us, the rest of the community. This is, what do we do with that discharge in that water that kind of now flows into our environment? So that's one of, it's technically possible to manage that. No plan, so who knows, right? So that's why there's a consideration. And I think, when I was talking with Bill, we talked about, we don't know enough because there can be some harmful side effects if it's not built right. I meant tree canopy impact. Well, I mentioned that in terms of solar farms. It's not huge tracks if they just limit it to the buildings, but if they then do, clear cuts to put down solar farms, then my hackles go up. The other couple of things in running data centers is, remember those 4 nines I mentioned earlier, is you're absolutely going to have major backup diesel generators there. You're going to have fairly significant diesel tanks with fuel that both need to be run on a continuous basis. Well, not a continuous basis, run on a test basis. And diesel fuel does tend to go bad or stale, so you got to kind of recycle that fuel. So what's their plan? What's how they store the diesel stuff? What do they do if they have to, kind of move it out and move other diesel fuel in? What do they do to end the life of this stuff? We don't want to be stuck with, a large, environment that has all this diesel below ground tanks in there. The other thing is the data centers of the size they're talking about will have a building full of liquid, acid batteries that typically have a life somewhere between 3 to 5 years. And so you have to get rid of those. You got to recycle them out, bring new ones in. What's their plan for recycling all those batteries? Is it versus, oh, I'll just put them off on the side, kind of have a little dump there and stack them up, or am I actually going to get them the heck to a recycling center and make sure they're disposed of properly? So I think there's a lot of these things can be addressed in design of it, but again, we got no plans, right? So other than concerns, I don't know what to tell you, other than there's a lot of things we'd have to look at to make sure that we're not doing more harm than good. So I start off on the business side that says, is there a good business here? And the answer is, right now, it's not clear. All right, I'd have to say you got to show us the business case. And on the environmental side, it says, I'm not sure. You got to show us your plans to mitigate all these issues. So that's kind of where we're at with the lack of information. I guess suspicions run high, or my suspicions run high. So that's kind of my dump to you guys.
Any questions for Larry?
So it sounds like you love it and you're very excited about this. Is that what I understand correctly?
I love data centers. Like I said, it's been my life. All right. I'm still living off it on my pensions, but
Just not this one.
You got to do it. You get this one. Nah, I would not. I would not build a data center in Connecticut. As much as I was born in Connecticut and I love this state, but this is not a place I'd want to put a data center. Other businesses, that's fine. But this one I kind of look at and going, why? That's kind of my net. So yeah, you got it.
I have a question. So Larry, would you say that basically this is an arbitrage play by an investor, or why are they even putting this on the table in your view?
The first round in my view was to collect the rights, right, which he did, and then market that, sell that, and take some money out, for his effort in getting all the agreements and contracts in place. And I believe that's what's happened. Now the question is, what's this next guy going to do? Right? Is he just kind of reserving those rights, right, and trying to figure out what? That's it. I just don't know. So and I don't even know who this second round of company is, because they usually set up unique, brand new, whether it's an LLC or something, to do it. So you got to kind of dig around and find out who's behind it. So right now, I don't have an answer to that question. If we can get an answer on who is who's going to take over from that first round guy, which, by the way, was really sketchy, then we can start to answer your question. So I'm not sure.
Hey, Larry, I want to thank you. And I want to just, when we first discussed this, because it was already known there wasn't a plan, we looked at it, and I looked at it from two standpoints. Is, for one, unbeknownst, just because we're economic development doesn't mean we're anti-environment. We definitely all have a vested interest in our shoreline and our water and our, and that's what I love about these types of things, is this is where the communication of, yeah, I want to understand those types of things. And from a business standpoint, since Larry did have a background in this, just to get a little education before anything's come before us, which hasn't happened.
Right.
I don't know what his motives are. I don't know if it's an arbitrage play. I don't know what it is, but I always keep in the back of my mind is, okay, right now we may not have this need. And I agree with everything that was stated, but I never shut the door on, well, what if, and that now we have something that is viable, but it doesn't mean we don't have to look at all the other aspects that were brought up. So the more we have in information, it saves us a lot of time and learning when this comes before us. So what's invaluable is working with Conservation Commission from the standpoint that I think we all agree upon, but also from the standpoint of where is this benefiting for the growth of Groton in a reasonable and along the lines that we always try to adhere
Yeah.
to. So that's the key to it, as far as I'm concerned, is bringing together commonality. And Larry prefaced his whole thing. He goes, "I'm not against economic development." And I said, that's all I need to know, because there are some people that just don't believe in economic development in spite of everything else. And
No,
that's not what we're
look,
coming at.
is even though I'm on the Conservation Commission,
Nope.
I've approached it from that. So we've had 11 town properties that's been put on the table for economic development. We reviewed them, and 9 of the 11, we said, fine. Right? Look, it looks good. We're not going to have any issue to it. 2 of them, we said, hey, wait a minute, let's talk about this. Right? So we're trying to look at this with a balanced approach. And that's why I reached out to on this one, because it is a fairly large area. The town area is not that large, it's 17 acres, but then when you add in, there's a state component and some private components, it gets up to a decent, size chunk of land. So we just want to make sure that, I want to make the right decision for the town, both from an economic development point of view and from a conservation point of view. And that's why I think it's great that we kind of work together as we go through this process and, go back to the town, because we both work for the town, right? With kind of a common, I'd love to see a common response. It says, hey, we looked at all these and the balances. Here's kind of, hey, if you're going to do it, because there's a business case, let's assume there is one, but they do these things, right? They do
Correct.
reclaimed water. They have a recycling plan for their batteries. They run their, they have special diesels that don't sit there and inject noise into the environment, greater than 100 decibels or whatever it is we want to talk about to balance that, then I think that would be for the benefit of the whole.
And I think we're all in agreement on that, Larry. So I think that this is a great opportunity. And hey, who knows? We may not hear about this again when we're long gone from our commissions, but at least we've got a starting point here. So any other questions for Larry before we move on?
Thank
Larry,
you.
thanks for your time. Jim, welcome. I hope it was informative for you also from our perspective. And we'll move on from there. Thanks again, Larry. Okay, chair report. What I have on the chair report really, and it kind of ties in, and I want to say, I hold myself just as to the same standards as everyone, and I was going to do it, and I've been sidetracked myself, but we all kind of talked about the new mask mandate, which is now there's talk about all that stuff's going away, whatever, which was one aspect of it, but also of picking up cards that we had, that Lauren had ready for us to pick up, and I wasn't able to do it myself for some of the stuff that's going on. And one of them was that Sam had mentioned was the Greater Groton. And if you look in your package, it shows that the participation on it is increasing, it's growing. We'd like to see it getting better. And part of our job is to get that out there, and handing out simple cards when we're doing our outreaches. If we're doing masks or whatever like that, is an easy way for us to be out there and such. So, I'm going to commit to it again. When I was there last week, Lauren unfortunately wasn't out for me to pick up the cards, but it's just something we should be doing. And it's a couple fold, because if you've ever have the opportunity, and I encourage you to go into that Greater Groton, there's a lot of good stuff in there, a lot of good stuff for the benefit of the existing businesses. But also people that may be looking into coming into Groton, and I know Sam will go over. There's some other things he's going to go over in the staff report. But I really encourage people to stop off. Lauren will have them together for you to pick them up. And I think I saw on an email, Craig, you wanted to say something also about the mask feedback. I'm sure you got out. I wasn't able to, so I don't want to. Please.
Yeah, I want to comment on the masks, but also the cards.
Okay.
I went out and saw probably 60 different businesses in Mystic delivering both. One comment is a reiteration of something that we saw last time. Although the town thinks that people know what the town decides to do, people don't know. And so the stores did not know about a mask mandate, even if there was a mask mandate, despite the fact that this time there was a good article in the New London Day. So if there are messages that the town needs to convey, they need a better way of doing it than what we're doing. Probably 1/3 of the stores that I went into didn't know. They actually might have had signs up for their own purposes because they believed in it, but nonetheless didn't know that the town had reinstituted the mandate after the town had turned it off before. So I think we need to do a better job of communicating with the town, that the town needs to do a better job of communicating with the people and the businesses in the town. That would be the first comment. And the second is, in passing out the cards, I didn't find anybody who wasn't intrigued with the idea of the cards and what they recommended in terms of Greater Groton. And a lot of people, if you talked a little bit about what they might have access to, including in Mystic, the potential for parking issues being addressed, everybody was interested in signing up. So I would encourage people to get out there and promote the cards, because people are interested, and that will promote what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, I've talked about the Greater Groton to people, and I find the same exact thing, and it's an interactive. Sam worked very hard on this, and I'll tell you, it's one of the best ones I've seen. I've also said that the Facebook, I think, is a great avenue because it kind of links you, gives you those little push alerts, so it reminds people to go in and look. So these are a couple things that I pass out as much, but I from a mask standpoint, I've seen stores with it up that there is a mandate. I don't know where that came from. I also see in a lot of places I frequent is a lot of people aren't paying mind to it as much as they had in the past. Whether that's because there is a sense of just I'm done, or whatever it is. Whether the town says it's a mandate or not, I don't know if people are really still on board with all that, especially with everything you see in the press. But it does not hurt to what Craig was addressing, is we need a better way of making sure this is conveyed out there. And, you know, we can do our part on it. But from the announcement standpoint, at least this time, it wasn't like, I didn't even know it was past ourselves. We did get the article and such. So my 2 cents.
A number of places did have signs up that there were homemade signs, and most of them, when receiving the sign that we created and prepared, chose to put it up because, as they would put it, it was a little bit easier to say that the town had mandated it. Even if they wanted the masks on, it was easier to, if you will, blame it on the town than it was to
Sure.
to address it. And so it just made it easier for people to comply.
Sure. Michael, your hands up.
Yes, so I was thinking about the, trying to do the outreach and whatnot, and back in the years ago when I was a mere liaison, we had the idea of trying to get people besides the commission to go out and do the outreach, because I was thinking about this today, that the criteria of what makes a good EDC member, like what we're looking for, is in direct conflict with someone who has time to go out and go visit a bunch of businesses and hand out cards. We're looking for someone who is active in the business community and has a lot of experience and knowledge, and like their time's expensive. And to then be like, and by the way, we want you to go out and like walk around town, hand out a bunch of cards. So it might be worth revisiting the idea of having, whether it's some kind of internship program or outreach, maybe working with kids from Fitch or just people who want to get involved in the community in a lower impact way. But some way to make a program of that, to have more, to kind of let people focus on, where the strengths are, because time to go do outreach is not one of my strengths. I have many, but that's not one of them. But there's other people who maybe want to get involved and think, going and visiting 20 or 30 or 40 businesses would be really cool, because they get to know the community, get to know the businesses, and work their way into the middle of things.
Agree, Michael. That's something that we did pre-COVID. We did have volunteers because of RTM got involved, and they brought in other people, which is great. But the fundamental part of this is as EDC is we are supposed to be out outreaching. So if we're outreaching, it's nice to have something to hand out on top of it. But any other ones that are additional, hey, give a business owner that might interact with other business owners a stack of the cards and say, hey, pass this out if you find it as a benefit. But it's the contact, and we still have to do that. Robert, hands up.
Regarding communicating with the business community, is there anything that the town has, on Craig's point as well, to communicate in, like a email list for the business owners that we can communicate both mask mandate issues and then also either setting up a time, would they like to meet with us in person or push a card out? I mean, I don't know how the logistic work, but I mean, I'm sure the assessor's office has ways to get a hold of them. So can we utilize any of that, or is that not appropriate, or?
Okay, so very appropriate, something we've worked on for many years of collecting these emails, because there's really no list that anyone can do. And we have grown a little bit. So one of the things one of my gentlemen that worked on the commission before is get business cards with emails on them. Any way we can get emails and get them to Lauren, that just adds to the database to make that more widespread. But that's been our primary goal for years now, and we want to keep doing it. Paige, your hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce that point. That is our primary goal. And, John Burt, he would come to some of the meetings every once in a while, and he would reinforce that it is the EDC's role. Since he's the appointing entity, he definitely envisions the EDC members as the ones that should have direct communication with the business community. Specifically to that point, the under outreach, the single most important item is to get the email address, because there are assumptions that that database exists through tax assessor. It's not an accurate database. Maybe that email that they have goes to their accountant or their attorney. We're trying to get the primary point of contact to a business owner, the best person we can get to. And the only way we know how to do that is to try to build it organically, which we've been doing, and we've made progress, but it takes a lot of time. We have a listing of primary email addresses for hundreds of businesses, but we don't have as many as we would like. So that is the main purpose for the outreach, so that when we get key information that needs to be blasted out, we can send it to that listing. In terms of some of the information that's come out, we need to do a better job. I think we do. I think we're all challenged. We, in economic development, we find out about these mandates not too far ahead of when the public finds out. And often we're told, do your best to get the word out. And we'll use our database of businesses. We use Facebook. We do everything we can to blast it out, but we know it's not the best way. So I think we're always looking for the best opportunity to get the word out. I wish it was better.
Rob, is your hand still up, or you didn't put it down?
No, I'm not savvy with Zoom yet, how to put it down, but
Okay,
I'll figure it out.
Greg, your hand up.
Yeah, my reason for putting my hand up after hearing this was because I had visited all of these businesses before and had submitted all of the emails. Either the emails aren't signed on, which doesn't sound like Sam. I would expect that he probably put them all in, or Lauren did, or people don't read their emails, and we can't count on that as a means of communication, which is what I think the issue is. And so we need to find a better way for the town to communicate things if the community thinks that they're important, and presumably health is important.
I agree, because I know what I do with my emails, and I know how they come in. I know we had spam filters and everything like that. I still think our best is Greater Groton, Explore Groton, the ones that people are actually going into, and if they're utilizing it, there's a benefit to them, that information will be there for them. And that's why I think I still want to collect emails, because that's the best thing we can do from a list standpoint, and to send out in mass. But people that are interacting with Groton, if we get Greater Groton people, just in general, business owners going into it, because that's what everyone does, now it's interactive, because they have a vested interest of going into that once a week or once a day or whatever it might be. So, but I hear you, Craig, the same way. And I'm that way with my emails. So. All right, enough said. Lauren has those cards ready. And as I said, I think it's easy to have a card to give to somebody. And Robert will, if you're going to be going out in business thing, we'll get you some EDC cards also. So at least you have your name on it.
Okay.
That's something that was been fairly new, but when we instituted it, COVID came about. So hate falling back to COVID, but we're going to move past it. So, all right, all I have to say on that. So that I'm going to pass over to staff report, and Paige, I'm going to let you. I know Sam wanted to talk on the budget simulator that is through that, but you guys work out who's speaking when, and I'm going to pass over to you.
I think I'm going to speak on Sam's behalf this evening. He's a little out of pocket. I think he might be listening, but he won't, I don't believe will be engaging in the conversation too much. Let me run through the report, and then I will try to emphasize a little bit more about the budget simulator. So past several months, ARPA is always a leading priority for us, spending a lot of time on that. We're really pleased. We have a new staff member who will actually be starting on Monday. Kevin Fitzgerald will be the ARPA coordinator. So we have mentioned this before, the town, the municipal side of the town, not even including the schools or the city of Groton, the town alone has 8.6 million that has been allocated directly by the federal government for COVID response type expenses. And recently, just within the past few weeks, the final rule was issued by the Treasury. If anyone has a hard time sleeping at night, I would definitely encourage reading the 400-page document, final rule from the US Treasury. There is a summary version of it, which is helpful, but this is complex stuff. And we will be issuing in the future a developed application to the community at large. That would be the business community, nonprofits, even municipal departments will have to complete the application for individual programs or projects that they are seeking funding for. Our department, we have a couple ideas we'll be submitting. I know Parks and Rec has some projects. So Mystic Chamber, a lot of entities will be submitting applications that will go through this committee process and ultimately to the town council for approval. But if you happen to be interested in this final rule, let me know offline. I'm more than happy to send you the link. But having Kevin Fitzgerald, our new ARPA coordinator, come on board is going to be quite a help, because we've been scrambling internally to try to keep this effort moving forward. It is quite important. Related to that, I know Sam did a fairly extensive presentation at the January meeting about Greater Groton and how we're using that as a key public engagement tool. Many of the municipalities, think of ARPA as kind of like an inheritance. All of a sudden, this money falls from the sky, and municipalities are trying to figure out, what are we going to do with this? Are we going to invest it? Are we going to spend it quickly? A lot of municipalities in the state nationwide had the same challenge. You know, do we get it on the street quickly? Do we do a needs assessment? And I think it was handled in different ways. Groton decided we're going to take a fairly rational and methodical approach. And we wanted, before we started writing checks and handing them out, we wanted to make sure we were going to put this money to the best use possible, whether it's investing it or putting it to existing services. And we have been involved in this needs assessment effort so that we can, is it going to be perfect? No, but we want to know what is the best way to allocate the funds so that we can really make it work for Groton over a long period of time, not one and done, but how can we make a difference, invest it so we can move the needle for years to come. And so this Greater Groton tool is really part of that overall needs assessment in trying to gauge people's sentiment, explain what the program is about so that we can really hone in on this best investment. That brings us to the budget simulated tool. So we have this 8.6 million, which we will receive in two different tranches, 4.3 million each year. But we want to know from the public, of these priorities that we put on this budget simulated tool, how might you actually adjust that, dial it in, So case in point, let's say a Parks and Recreation project. Do you think that X amount of money is an adequate amount allocated to that? Or do you think it should be higher? Do you think it should be lower? And so those people who go in and actually see significant priorities that we have put on that tool have the ability to turn the volume up, turn the volume down, shift money from this area more over to that area. And when we get the feedback from the public, it's going to really help us understand what the public believes the needs are so that we can prioritize, so that the committee can, as they're receiving these applications, can say, well, the public believe that this is a top priority. So this particular project should be funded, or maybe it's not getting enough money. We want to increase it, or maybe we want to decrease it. We're going to have some of that justification as it goes through the process and ultimately gets to the town council, where they make the final decision on the allocation. So I think this tool is going to be critical in creating basically a great baseline for us. And let's not forget, if we actually fund projects or initiatives inappropriately, the money will be called out by the federal government in the future. We'll have to pay it back. So it's critical that we actually have a pretty sound program and process, because if we're found to have expended it inappropriately, it'll cost Groton taxpayers dearly. So maybe I explained it a little bit too much, but that's the overall concept. And we really want people in Groton to get on the site to provide their feedback, because that's going to be the best way that we can actually capture it and help us make the best decisions on how to allocate and invest this money. The next item, explore more Groton. We've talked about that years ago. There was a need to create this dedicated economic development website. Well, it's been a few years now, and we do have the opportunity to create a refresh. Although we're happy with the website, things always evolve. They always get better, and we're looking at some other sites, trying to find ways to make it more riveting. I think in the staff report, we indicated this is really geared towards developers and investors. It's not the same as the town of Groton's traditional website that might be geared towards residents. This is geared towards those who are not necessarily already here, but might be interested in coming here. What is Groton? Why is it special? Why should I invest my resources in Groton? But it also deals with existing businesses as well. Hopefully it gives them some resources. Moving under public property redevelopment, we actually have had some significant activity over the past few weeks. The first one, Mystic Education Center. Obviously, there's been a lot of dialogue and conversation regarding that project over the past few months. What's happened recently, we were notified that a group, an investor, has come in and signed an agreement to acquire Respler Homes and all of the assets and liabilities, I believe. I'm not necessarily the expert on that front, but to purchase Respler Homes, including the agreements and the properties owned by Respler Homes. And that includes the purchase and sale agreement with the state. So that was actually made public on January 25th at a CAL meeting. And we need to know much more information moving forward. However, that is the current status. The name of the company is Blue Lotus, and people are speculating right now and doing their own research, who they are, who they're not, and all of that. But I think time will tell. We're going to move into mediation, planned mediation with Respler Homes early March. And at that time, I believe there'll be more information that comes out regarding this new group. As a reminder, for those who are not familiar, the property involved 80 acres, is 160,000 square feet of existing space. That also includes a 40,000 square foot indoor recreation facility. So this is not it's not a undeveloped piece of property. I think whatever happens there is going to be some form of redevelopment. It's our belief that the proposal that Blue Lotus is putting forward is of significantly less intensity And they do intend on keeping the buildings, but we will learn more as time goes on. Groton Heights Elementary School, moving that forward, and it's our goal right now to get before the council, hopefully by late February, certainly not any later than early March. We have a final agreement that's being looked over by Thayer Mahan, and they are eager to move forward, but some of these things take a little bit longer than we anticipate. Gold Star Highway, I've touched on that before. AR Builders is in a position with the developer PG&A to advance the project, which will involve something less than 300 multifamily units at that site. The Triton Square, the former Sealy School, that has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. However, there has been a recent appeal by some abutters. It's my understanding the developer and the abutters might be conversing on how to resolve that, but there is a formal legal appeal that will delay that until it can be addressed. Colonel Ledyard School, Bell Site, the developer did go before the city's Planning and Zoning Commission. I was present for that on January 19th. The project simply wanted to know what direction to go with the existing building, whether to keep it as a single story or if they would be open to the idea of adding a second story to the elementary school. I think most people would agree the commission was open to a second story. There were some public members that were allowed to speak who supported that. So I believe the developer will go back and refine his plans, including the second story, and come back to the city's Planning and Zoning Commission seeking approval of that plan. I think the last item that I have, I always close with the unemployment statistics. They continue to improve. We're always a month behind. And for the latest data, December, Groton was at 3.8% unemployment, which is outstanding compared to where we were not that long ago, and much lower than even the state, which is averaging 4.4%. So that concludes my report. Thank you.
Any questions for Paige? Thank you, Paige. Is Sam not feeling well?
Yeah, he's has not been in the office past couple days, but he'll definitely be back quite soon.
Not trying to pry, but always concerned. That's all. Thank you again. Okay, for liaison reports, I do show, let's see, I have Stephen on. Steve, would you like to address?
Yeah, just real briefly. Good evening, all. Just jumped on. I had a late day at work, and it took me a little while here to get home. Just real quick, just a quick update on the water taxi dock. Mr. Hanover told, it was actually Mayor Giedrich that heard this originally, that it looks like they're going to start mid-March and should be done by around Memorial Day. And then, of course, there'll be a little while after that before the boat comes, our Nautilus comes back sometime probably in June. And they're looking for a welcoming home ceremony or celebration, probably in September sometime. But that's still being worked out, but I guess it's going to be a rather large event. So, we look forward to that. Not too much else going on. There's a large training exercise, as my little report said, coming up here in the next, actually this week and next. It's exercise Citadel, Shield, and Solid Curtain. It's two different security type exercises that happen on the base every year. They do a lot of different exercises on base and locking the base down and stuff like that, just to be prepared if anything were to happen. So we're working through that. And I guess the only other thing I was going to report was it was just the Nautilus's birthday. She's 68 years old. So that's kind of neat. She's still in dry dock. I walk by her every now and then, and she's all encased in plastic, and there's lots of folks going in and out, doing their thing, working on her. So we're happy to see that progressing along. I don't have any timetables as how much longer she's going to be. I think, like I said, I don't think she's going to be getting out of there till maybe June or so, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know if anybody has any questions or anything. I don't really have too much else at this point, kind of here in the middle of winter.
Thank you, Stephen. Robert, just to let you know, our liaisons, we have Stephen on is from the the Naval Sail Base, and also we have Aaron Brooks on that'll come up next, and he's with Groton Utilities, and sometimes we have him from RTM and such, so just to make you aware. Craig, your hands up?
Yeah, I apologize for being slow. I can get my physical hand up faster than the mechanical one up. It was really a thought with respect to Paige's report, because we're hearing more and more about not in my backyard reactions to things. And the goals that we just put forward for ourselves would include understanding those issues and beginning to work with communities to help understand what their issues are, to see whether we can't facilitate a solution that works. So I'm not sure I know the answer now. I'm more putting the issue on the table now and suggesting to Paige that if there are things that we could be doing to help the likelihood of a project going through in the future in order to be true to the goals we just put forward, it would be good to do that.
I agree completely, Craig. And what we'll do is we'll work on, and I'll let Paige address it too, is when we have the opportunity, we can facilitate a forum where the public can come in and give us that feedback and the information. It's probably the easiest way of doing it. But Paige, your response?
I just want to thank Craig for bringing that up. I think we could use any assistance. I think when I talk to developers and they want to know what's the process, they're thinking of things more in a linear front. I often describe it more as the court of public opinion. And if they do an outstanding job at getting the word out, getting out there, dealing with the community and the public, number one, they're going to better educate people as to what their intent is. Number two, they're going to deal with the silent majority. And I think incorporating the EDC in that, I believe, is something that would be helpful. It just reminded me, I didn't mention, but it's my understanding, at least I've been told, that Blue Lotus with the Mystic Education Center, they definitely plan on having a dedicated company that will help them with the community outreach. And I hope they're right about that. And I think possibly the EDC should be in the loop on that, and maybe they could assist in some way. So thank you.
As I said, I think it goes hand in hand. We'd be happy to facilitate it because we have that forum format that we can use for any of that stuff. So, and it helps us as commissioners to hear the feedback also. And because we get the comments, people come in and comment to us, but we're really kind of out of it at that point. So yeah, I would like it to be more inclusive, and the more we do, the better at that point. So Robert, your hands up.
Yeah, and just to accentuate what Paige said, is there, I saw in the last meeting minutes a discussion of the liaison between us and the town council. Is that still happening? Do we still have that in order to, again, just make sure there's community input and that we're helping facilitate the discussions between developers and what the town council would like to see, and making that process go better, whatever the liaison was doing before, if I'm correct.
Yeah, we always had one from the town council. We had two counselors actually, and it was good because they'd give us feedback what they were doing, and they could hear what we're doing. I have not heard, unless Paige has, of someone being appointed from the council. I did get an email that Leanne, who was on the council before, Leanne Aubrey, who's a local realtor, she's now on the RTM, and she will also be the liaison back to the EDC, which is good, but she has a good working relationship with us already. So Paige, have you heard anything about the council?
I have not, but I certainly will ask. I'll see
Okay.
if I can find out.
Perfect, thanks. But you're Robert, yeah, the more that we that we get on as liaison is great, because we have one from Groton City. We can kind of do some of the things they're going through, the RTM, all the different places that support us. So Michael, your hands up.
Yes. So first, my advice for Blue Lotus would be to hire the PR team and then not fire them. I think that's the kind of two-step process for them. And then the other thought I had, because a lot of what I do is make connections and introductions, and so I talked to some developers, and there definitely seems to be I'm sure there's more than two kinds of developers, but they split into two types. One is the type who is somewhere in the world and looks at a bunch of spreadsheets and says, I believe this is a good place for development. Let me look at the books and read read the zoning. And they don't realize like there's humans who live in the town they're trying to drop buildings on. And then the other one is people who say, oh, this is a place with a lot of humans in it, and let's make sure we work in there and have something that fits and where people will be glad to see us here and part of the process. Of course, they still want to make money, but they are interested in engaging with the community. And it seems like the second type might have less trouble than the first type in trying to get things through and getting the community to say, oh, this is nice development, as opposed to what the heck is that?
I'll tell you from my experience, and I have a background with it. I have an engineer son-in-law. Every developer that comes into communities like this, they do want to accommodate if it makes financial sense to them. If they don't make financial sense, then they go elsewhere. Where frustrations with developers come is, and this wasn't the case maybe before, but they get feedback and they make the accommodations, and then someone goes, well, what about this? And so there is a give and take there. And as EDC, even with concept, we need to be supportive of what we're trying to be, because now that they know all up front about that, but no one will develop, no one will put any money into a business unless there is profit to be made. And that's just basic economics.
Yeah, but it's more about in terms of the engagement of from talking to some developers and some people on the other side who study towns being developed, that oftentimes they'll work with the town council or the mayor or the economic development department, and that's as far in as they go, and they don't reach out to the chambers of commerce or the churches or the wherever the people gather to try to really get in there.
In my experience, when they're coming into communities like a Groton, that's usually not the case. Maybe if you're going into a city, maybe that is the case. I just know that they do try to accommodate as much as possible. So
okay, well, it's not the case that they communicate, or it is the case they communicate?
They do communicate because they understand they have, ours is multiple zoning. So you have residential here, you have maybe light commercial here. So there's a lot of, and they understand that going in, and they hire people that's why they hire these people that know the local stuff to figure out all that before they come in and spend any money on because it costs them a lot of money just to do a presentation. So
right, but that's just, I think that's where Wrestler went so sideways is they weren't engaged.
One case, I'm sure it happens, but I've heard a lot of stories where they do everything right and they still get people coming out saying, nope, we're not going to do it. So
it's always gonna be someone,
So just to move on, because Aaron was on also, and we were already into it. So our liaison for Groton Utilities is Aaron Brooks. Robert Boris is a new member. Aaron, just to introduce you. And I didn't know if you'd like to give any input on your report to us.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me late. I actually really wanted to see the presentation, so I'm sorry that I missed the data center little piece there. But thank you for having me. I did submit a report this month, and it's included in your packet. I'll just highlight two quick things. One is, I think for several months now, we've been highlighting our conservation programs. On the residential side, we internal to GU set a goal to double customer engagement on our residential side, and we blew it out of the water. And so we're pretty proud of that for 2021. In 2022, we're looking to kick off new commercial and industrial programs. And so we hope to hit another home run on the commercial and industrial piece. And then the last thing that I'll touch base on, and I think it's actually pretty important, we updated our regional benchmark as far as pricing goes. And of course, we tend to benchmark our average residential service. We are 39% below our regional investor-owned utility. That's almost $70 a month that our residents save versus the regional competitor. And to be honest with you, specifically right now to this winter season, there is actually quite a bit of upward pressure on energy. And I just wanted to let everybody know that certainly on our end, we're doing everything we can to mitigate those impacts. But energy is going through the roof right now. But I think that's it. That's what I'll highlight.
Thank you, Aaron. And we do appreciate you keeping us below the benchmark. Paige, your hands up.
Thank you. I know Aaron, he wanted to see the data center presentation. That we covered a lot of ground, or Larry Dunn covered a lot of ground, and there was some reference to utility rates in Connecticut generally. And, it's no big secret that energy prices are more expensive in New England than other parts of the country. But we didn't really get into it, but I was hoping you could make a simple comment regarding GU's pricing, particularly maybe for commercial, industrial, relative to other providers in Connecticut in terms of how you rank overall.
Yeah, so essentially there's three of the lowest providers in Connecticut, and Groton Utilities, I think, is two of them. So Groton Utilities, Bosra Light and Power have extremely low industrial rates, and really kind of tied for first. And Wallingford is also very competitive. So Wallingford, Connecticut, would be the other very low cost provider in the region. And other than that, I mean, that really is about it. Your investor-owned utilities, whether that's United, Illuminating, or Eversource, aren't going to be competitive in that space. Your municipal utilities are competitive, but specifically Groton, Bosra, and Wallingford are especially competitive, for sure.
Thank you.
So as an inducement for that, those are the pieces of why it doesn't make economic sense for someone to come in. So I was thinking along the same lines before, but since we don't have anything in front of us, it's not really anything to comment on. But thank you, Paige. Michael, your hands up.
And just one other quick thing. I can actually include, we definitely do benchmark commercial and industrial rates, and I can include that in next month's packet.
Thank you. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Michael, your hands up.
Yeah, just a quick comment. So, I know a number of solar installer people, and whenever I mention Groton Utilities, they're like, "Oh, the rates are so low, we don't even talk about them." Because unless people just want solar to have solar, we can't have any kind of thing that'll give savings over their rates are too low.
Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Well, actually, I'll piggyback off of the solar thing too. So,
sure.
We're actually going to be making a pretty big push to be, I think, quote unquote, more solar friendly. And Michael is right. It is tough economics for the solar developers because, they make their margin between the cost of the solar and the retail rate of electricity in Eversource. And there's more margin there to play with than there is in our market. But Groton specifically is in a pretty good position with our conservation and sustainability funding. And we think we can provide some really robust programs to incentivize solar and batteries as we move forward. So I look forward to those progressions in the future.
Keep us updated on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron. Lauren, just to make sure, I just want to make sure that Leanne gets a Zoom invite for next month. I haven't spoken to her, but just so it's on my mind that she's included on it. Any other new business to come up before the commission? All right, I thank you all. I'll entertain a motion for adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everybody.